Good morning. We're going to take a moment, or 5 or 6 moments, and go back, look over some basics with simplifying radicals, particularly with just the square root, not a cube root today. Finding common denominators for ratios. And then once we write a ratio or a fraction down, if we want to approximate that fraction, if it's got a repeating decimal or a non-terminating decimal. I thought we'd look at our first example of simplifying the square root of 1200. Okay, and you can pause and try that on your own. Think of the factors of 1200. Well, we can tell that 3 times 4 is going to divide into 1200 evenly, and then 100 will divide into 1200 evenly. If you're working and thinking about a factor tree, what I just noticed is that 12 would go into 1200 evenly, and 12 times 100 would be the same thing as 1200. Now 100 is a perfect square, 12 is not, but 12 is 3 times 4. So I'm looking for perfect square factors of 1200. One of the factors is not perfect, but 3 times 4 times 100 is equivalent to 1200 under the radical. The square root of a product can be rewritten as a product of the individual square roots. Person doesn't have to show that step. The square root of I'm going to work backwards. The square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 4 is 2. 10 times 2 is 20. And since 3 is not a perfect square, we cannot simplify square root of 3. So I multiplied 10 times 2, which was 20, and I decided to put the whole number 20 up front. Again, now square root of 3 is not a rational number. The square root of 3 can be approximated on a calculator and rounded to the nearest hundredth as 1.73. I just had my cat go across the screen. Sorry about that. So if we want to place an approximation to the product 20 times square root of 3, we would take square root of 3, multiply by 20, and I get something on my calculator close to 36, and I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, let's continue with some more basics. Now I want the viewers to note that in that last example, we were given an expression, square root of 1200, and that's an understood positive square root of 1200. So that's approximately positive 36.64. And this numeric expression represents one value. Now, if I'm looking for the value of x such that x squared is 49, then there's going to be 2 values of x that could give me 49. If x is 7, 7 times 7 is 49. If x is negative 7, negative 7 times itself is also 49. So there are 2 real numbers whose square is 49. So the solution to x squared equals 49 is the set of real numbers negative 7 and 7. So as we continue, you need to make note, are you looking at a numerical value? Then it's going to be equivalent or approximate to a value that has the same sign. Or are you solving an equation where you're thinking through the solution where you're thinking about taking the square roots of both sides of an equation. If you're taking the square root of both sides of an equation, you need to take into account the positive and the negative roots.